Welcome to the radio. What time is it over there? And where are you listening from tonight? Wherever you are, I'm glad you're here. If this moment feels calm, feel free to subscribe to Quilloren Radio. It helps us keep the lights on, figuratively and occasionally literally. Tonight's story takes you into the hushed, carpeted corners of a small-town library in 2006. You are the librarian. You arrive early, leave late, and somewhere in between, you keep watch over the printed world. These days, fewer questions are asked aloud. The internet has gotten better at pretending to know things. But the silence here still feels lived in, and you've learned to take it personally in the best way. Without further ado, let's begin. You arrive before the sun fully settles in. The parking lot holds only your car, its engine ticking faintly as it cools. You step out with your shoulder bag and the travel mug that never quite keeps tea warm, and the wind greets you with just enough chill to make you feel awake but not enough to be interesting. The key is already in your hand, warm from your palm. The front door resists slightly, as always. Its hinges complain in a tone that suggests you've interrupted a nap. You respond with the same mild grunt you give it every morning, a kind of mutual understanding. As you step inside, the door closes behind you with a soft clack that sounds more final than it is. You flick the row of light switches one by one. Each overhead fixture buzzes itself to life at its own pace, casting that distinctly flat, pale yellow library glow across the room. It's not cozy, but it is consistent. The air inside is still and comfortably stale. A familiar mix of old pages, carpet cleaner, and something faintly plasticky that might be from the vinyl on the chair in the children's section. You stand in the entrance a moment longer than you need to, just letting the building recognize you again. The silence is different here, not empty, just waiting. You move past the checkout counter and hang your coat on the wall hook beside the door to the staff room. The hook is slightly bent, not enough to fix, just enough to remember. You boot up the circulation computer, and it whirs with the slow, weary confidence of a machine that has never once been turned off voluntarily. The monitor flickers, turns black again, then finally settles into its normal gray-blue login screen. The barcode scanner chirps twice for no reason. The return bin is nearly empty. A folded-up National Geographic sticks out awkwardly from a stack of children's picture books, all of which appear to have been read in the bath, or at least near one. A few date stamps peek out from between the pages, still red but fading. You check them in one by one. The satisfying double beep from the scanner has become part of your internal rhythm, quiet enough not to disturb, sharp enough to feel like progress. You make your way through the aisles slowly, flipping on additional lights as you go. Some shelves are dustier than others. The travel section has shrunk a little over the past year. A few guidebooks to countries that have since renamed themselves still hold their places, like old postcards no one sent. One shelf is noticeably sagging in the middle, weighed down by a full row of atlases. The sticker on the front says, "Updated annually," a phrase that hasn't been true in some time. In the back, the reference section sits untouched. A thick layer of invisible usefulness hangs over the encyclopedias and style guides. The World Book set from 1997 is still pristine. People always read B for some reason. A and C are fine, but B gets the most fingerprints. You once found a receipt used as a bookmark in the Birds entry. It was from a corner diner that closed in 2002. At the far end of the room, you pause by the community bulletin board. You try to keep it updated, but it has taken on a more historical role lately. Flyers for events that never happened hang next to yellowed postings offering piano lessons, dog walking, and a used lawnmower. Someone added a sticky note last week that says, "Do you still exist?" in careful handwriting. You left it up. The copy machine makes a mechanical throat-clearing sound, just to remind you it's there. You press a button to silence it. The little green light responds, obedient but tired. You wonder when someone will use it next. There's still a faded sign taped to its side that says, "Copies, 2 pesos per page." No refunds if blurry. You've never had to enforce the refund policy. You pass the windows lining the east side. Outside, the wind stirs the branches of a tree you've never learned the name of. Its shadow stretches across the sidewalk. A plastic bag, sun-bleached and crinkled, drifts against the base of a bench and decides to stay there. Across the street, the post office hasn't opened yet. Its lights are off, and the flag out front hangs limp. Back at the front desk, the tea you made yesterday is still sitting in the staff room sink, the bag dried into a sad lump. You rinse it, start fresh. The electric kettle takes its time, not broken, just deliberate. While it hums, you glance at the corkboard above the mini fridge. There's a cartoon pinned there of a cat reading a textbook titled, Advanced Napping. It's been there 5 years. You'd miss it if it were gone, even though you no longer find it amusing. When the kettle clicks, you pour the water, stir in nothing, you don't take sugar or milk, and return to the main floor. Your mug warms your hands as you ease into your chair behind the desk. The seat cushion has a slight indentation exactly where your spine prefers it. You settle in, posture neither alert nor slouched. Outside, a car passes with music faintly leaking through closed windows. It disappears down the road without slowing. A light in the nonfiction section flickers twice, then steadies. The room holds its breath. You sip your tea. It tastes exactly the way you expect it to. The library is open. No one has arrived yet. That's all right. It's not a place that minds waiting. You leave your mug on the counter, still half full. The tea will be lukewarm by the time you return, but that's part of the routine now. You rise without urgency and begin your usual drift through the aisles, not to tidy or arrange, but simply to be near the books. The carpet muffles your steps, though one particular tile near the large print section always gives a muted creak. You've tried stepping around it before, but now you just let it speak. The aisles are quiet, but not dead. The books breathe in their own way, spine to spine, shelf to shelf, waiting for someone to notice them again. You trail a hand along the hardcovers as you walk, your fingers brushing old plastic protectors that have begun to yellow slightly. Some labels are faded, the once crisp black numbers now softened into a kind of whisper. Near the center of the library, you stop at a display table meant for seasonal picks. It's currently filled with a loosely organized collection of gardening guides, essay collections, and an inexplicably placed biography of a Canadian Prime Minister no one in this town has ever asked about. A single bookmark lies abandoned on the table, a promotional one from a cereal brand, with a cartoon bee reading a book titled Buzz into Knowledge. You don't remember how it got there, and you don't remove it. The fiction shelves hold their usual quiet posture. Some of the books still carry faint stamps from the late 90s. A copy of The Bridges of Madison County has been borrowed 47 times, according to its framed checkout card. You pause to slide it back evenly on the shelf. The book to its left has been slightly nudged out of line, as though someone considered it, then quietly changed their mind. You wander toward the back wall, past the biographies and true crime, where a standalone globe sits awkwardly beside a fake potted plant. The globe no longer spins, the axis is cracked, but it still leans against the Pacific Ocean with a kind of patient optimism. You rotate it gently with your hand, even though it doesn't need it. It always comes back to the same position, a habit you haven't bothered to correct. The children's section is still decorated with cutout stars and cartoon animals. Most of the chairs are too small for you now, but you sit in one anyway, the plastic squeaking slightly under your weight. You look around. There's a stuffed bear propped in the corner, one eye missing and the other sewn on with red thread that doesn't quite match. You leave him as he is. A cardboard sign above the low shelves reads, Read, Play, Grow, though the middle letter in play is hanging by a single tack, giving the word a slightly panicked tone. You stand again, slowly. One of the bean bags has deflated completely into a soft, sad pancake. A few picture books lie open on the nearby shelf, their pages warped slightly from past sticky fingers and some exposure to juice. You straighten them without a thought, aligning each corner with quiet precision. No one may come today, but it still matters. You head toward the reference area again, not because you need anything, but because it still feels like the heart of the place. The shelves are taller here, packed tightly with volumes that once carried authority. An entire row of medical encyclopedias sits untouched, except for one volume that has a bite mark on the edge, a mystery you never solved. You run a finger along the spines. They hum quietly in your mind, as if waiting for a question that hasn't been asked in a while. One of the shelves nearby houses a thick binder labeled, Local Ordinances 1983 to 2001. No one has opened it in at least a decade. You flip through the first few pages, which are still crisp and overly formal, then close it again. The plastic rings click into place with a satisfying snap. You pass a table near the window where students used to gather after school. There are still faint scratches in the wood from mechanical pencils, notes etched too hard and never sanded out. You can make out the faint word, test, carved just deep enough to be eternal. No one sits here now. The chairs are evenly spaced and unoccupied. One of them has a missing wheel, causing it to lean just slightly left. You leave it that way. It's a good place to put your coat when you forget the hook. At the corner near the restrooms, a bulletin board meant for staff notices features only one pinned item, a printed quote that reads, "The library is not a shrine for the worship of books, but a workshop for the use of information." Someone underlined "workshop" 3 times. You suspect it was the intern from last summer who reorganized the staplers by size. You continue to drift. You have no destination, no checklist. There is nothing that requires fixing, though there are always things that could be straightened. A crooked sign here. A shelf label half peeled. A stack of bookmarks near the copier that no one ever takes, but you restock them anyway. You return briefly to the front to check the computer. Still no new holds. No overdue notices to send. The screensaver is a photo of a mountain lake you've never seen in person. You don't remember setting it. You look around again. The library holds itself with the kind of quiet dignity only buildings like this seem to understand. It doesn't mind being overlooked. It just prefers to be noticed now and then. And today, that's your job. Near the far side of the building, past a section labeled World Religions that rarely moves, there's a small alcove tucked behind the poetry shelves. It wasn't designed to be anything special. Originally, it housed a rotating display that never actually rotated. One day, years ago, you quietly relocated the display stand to the back storage room and replaced it with an armchair and a small wooden table. No one questioned it. If anyone noticed, they chose not to mention it, which felt like permission. The armchair isn't much to look at. Faded burgundy fabric, one armrest darker than the other from years of uneven elbows. A shallow indent on the seat cushion where someone, perhaps even you, once sat for longer than expected. The cushion isn't soft, exactly, but it has a certain memory to it. It gives way just enough to feel welcoming, then stops. Next to it sits the wooden side table. Circular, just large enough for a mug or a small stack of books. A shallow scratch near the edge suggests someone once tried to use it as a writing surface without success. On top of it, there's a single laminated coaster with a picture of a lighthouse, though the actual lighthouse name is too faded to read. You've never been able to decide whether the image is calming or slightly judgmental. The skylight overhead filters in a narrow beam of daylight, shifting subtly with the hour. You've come to associate that light with a specific time of day, late morning, when the building feels most empty in a way that's oddly comfortable. The light doesn't fall directly on the chair, but lands nearby, painting a soft shape across the carpet, the table, and part of the bookshelf beside it. When the sun moves just right, the books on that shelf catch a soft gleam, as if quietly rehearsing for a photograph no one is taking. You sit there sometimes, when the clock moves slowly and the returns are quiet. You don't bring paperwork with you. It feels wrong to multitask in that chair. Instead, you might pick up a volume from the shelf behind it, usually something from the poetry section. Most of the books there are slim, with titles printed in typefaces that seem a little too pleased with themselves. But the poems inside are quiet enough for this corner. There's one collection you always return to. The spine cracked in 2 places, the author's name partly rubbed off from years of handling. You've never read the whole book, just certain lines, certain pages. You always seem to find the same passage, something about a fence post and a slow-moving storm, and how both decide not to hurry. You've never marked the page, and yet you always land on it again. One time, you found a handwritten note tucked between those pages. Blue ink on ruled paper, the handwriting careful but uncertain. It said, "I'm trying not to be too much." Nothing else. You didn't take it out. You just closed the book and left it exactly as it was. The chair isn't claimed. It doesn't belong to anyone, not even you. But over the years, it has quietly accepted your presence. When you sit there, the library feels different, not louder or busier, but more aware. As though it recognizes the act of sitting without purpose. The walls around the nook are close enough to muffle the rest of the room. The ambient hum of the lights fades a little. Even the occasional creak of a shifting ceiling tile becomes less frequent. It's not silent, but it's quieter than the rest of the library, like a breath drawn and held for just a moment longer than usual. There's a soft mark on the carpet near the foot of the chair, a pale semicircle worn from repeated use. You've never tried to clean it. The library has learned to live with small imperfections. So have you. Once, years ago, a child found the chair and read there for nearly an hour without speaking. When they finally looked up, they asked if they could check out a book on treehouses, though they pronounced it treehouses. You never forgot that. You're not sure why. You never saw the child again, but sometimes when you sit in the chair, you think of them, how still they were, how serious. How the library made space for their silence without needing to ask. Occasionally, you find that someone else has used the space without your noticing. The chair is slightly angled. The table has been moved just enough to suggest someone rested their feet against it, which is technically against the rules but never feels worth enforcing. One time, you found a wrapper tucked into the side cushion, a butterscotch candy, neatly folded. You threw it away and then immediately missed it. The chair is just a chair. The table is just a table. But together, they have become a small, wordless part of the building's memory. No matter what changes, no matter how few people come or how many questions get answered somewhere else, this corner stays exactly the same. Not frozen, not neglected. Just patient. You don't sit there today. Not yet. But you look at it as you pass, and for a brief moment, you feel like you've been seen. You drift away from the nook slowly, not because there's anything urgent elsewhere, but because lingering too long feels like you'd be borrowing from the quiet rather than resting in it. Some silences aren't meant to be overstayed, even if no one is watching. You return to the front desk, not to check anything, just to place your mug back on the coaster. The tea has cooled into that room temperature state where flavor becomes a suggestion. You take a sip anyway. It's neither good nor bad. It's simply there, like the shelf of self-help books that haven't been updated since the concept of assertive fax communication was considered essential. The desk chair greets you with its familiar sigh as you lower into it. The cushion compresses under your weight in a way that feels oddly reassuring. You lean back slightly, the plastic frame creaking softly, and let your eyes rest on the far end of the library. Everything is still. The air is unmoving. Not stale, just unbothered. The walls seem to hum with quiet contentment, like the building knows it's doing its job even if no one shows up to witness it. You glance at the clock above the exit door. It clicks every 60 seconds, but the sound is so subtle you only ever notice it when nothing else is happening. Your hands rest lightly on the desk, not typing, not writing, just there. Your breathing slows, though it was never fast to begin with. Inhale, exhale, soft and even. You're not thinking about anything in particular. Thoughts come and go, but none of them ask for your attention. You let them wander. Outside the nearest window, a branch shifts with the wind. Its movement is almost imperceptible, a barely there ripple of leaves that plays against the backdrop of a sky currently undecided between cloud and clear. A bird lands briefly on the sill, looks in without conviction, then flits away. Inside, the light from above settles into its usual mid-morning angle. It casts long, pale rectangles across the floor that slowly drift, unnoticed by most, but not by you. There's a warmth in their presence, as though the light itself is making a polite visit. You glance at the computer screen. It's gone to sleep. The library management software hums somewhere in the background, content to wait for input that may never come. The keyboard has a slight sheen on the space bar, a polished mark from thousands of thumb taps, most of which didn't lead to anything all that important. A distant tick echoes from the far corner of the room, possibly a heating pipe, possibly nothing at all. These are the sounds the building makes when it believes it's alone. You let them happen without analysis. You close your eyes briefly, not to rest, just to listen better. The absence of noise becomes more noticeable, more textured. There's a pressure to it, but not an uncomfortable one. It's the kind of silence that feels inhabited, by books, by breath, by the remembered footsteps of people who don't visit anymore but haven't quite left either. The air feels heavier near the history section. You're not sure why. The books are just books. But sometimes, you get the feeling that the past is a little denser in that part of the building. You don't mention it. It's not the kind of thing you bring up in small talk. The warmth in the room is uneven. The vent near the large print shelf tends to work harder than the others. It pushes out a low, steady stream of air that only barely registers if you're not standing directly beneath it. You're not. But you know it's doing its best. You look down at your hands again. There's a small ink mark on your index finger, a remnant from a pen you don't remember using. You rub it with your thumb, and it smudges slightly but doesn't disappear. You don't mind. It gives the day a tiny, tangible marker. There's a sort of rhythm to the quiet here. Not musical, just patterned. A pulse that comes not from action but from repetition. The lights, the clock, the faint rustle of pages settling themselves, all part of a silent loop that's been playing longer than anyone remembers. The building doesn't demand anything from you. It never has. It offers presence, not purpose. And here, in this moment, sitting alone behind a desk that no one approaches, surrounded by unread books and unseen dust motes, that offer feels more than enough. You close the circulation software, even though there's no reason to. The screen fades to black. Your reflection looks back at you faintly in the glass, slightly distorted, softened by the glow of overhead light. You don't adjust your posture. There's no need. Somewhere in the back, a loose page flutters inside a book left slightly ajar. You don't go to fix it. The sound it makes is gentle and unhurried, like someone stretching after a long nap. Stillness doesn't ask questions. It doesn't require commentary or labels. It simply is. And in this library, on this particular day in 2006, that stillness is the most present thing in the room. You take another sip of your tea. It's gone cold. You keep drinking anyway. If this quiet story feels like something you'd return to, consider subscribing to Quilloren Radio. It helps us keep sharing these still, gentle hours with you, wherever you are, whenever you listen. The stillness stays with you as you rise again, not out of urgency but because the body sometimes wants a change of scenery, even if the mind is perfectly content. You walk slowly toward the nonfiction section, not for any book in particular, just because that's where your feet decide to go. The air feels slightly warmer there, though the thermostat hasn't moved. The shelves stretch a little taller here, or at least they seem to. The overhead lighting softens. One bulb above row 612 flickers once, then resumes its glow, as though clearing its throat quietly. The floor beneath your steps has a slight give, the kind of barely perceptible cushion that only reveals itself when you've walked the same path for years. It's not something you notice unless you're paying attention. You are. Your hand grazes the edge of a shelf. A fine line of dust clings to the metal bracket, forming a subtle ridge. You don't wipe it away. The dust belongs here just as much as the books do. You pause near the science section. A guide to astronomy leans forward at a slight angle, as if trying to escape the weight of its neighbors. You straighten it gently, and the book responds by staying exactly where you left it. Across the aisle, an old copy of the Internet for Beginners sits slightly out of place, wedged between two volumes on botany. You wonder if someone moved it there as a joke, or if the book migrated of its own accord. There's a strange comfort in seeing that guidebook now. The cover shows a cheerful illustration of a cartoon mouse clicking on an oversized globe, a visual metaphor that once felt fresh but now reads like a politely outdated pamphlet from a former life. You pull it off the shelf. The pages inside are filled with full-color screenshots of dial-up interfaces, step-by-step instructions for searching, Ask Jeeves, and helpful tips on not sharing your credit card information with strangers. You hold the book in both hands for a moment longer than necessary. As you turn to shelve it properly, something in the air feels different. Not cooler, not heavier, just slightly shifted. Like the atmosphere around you has leaned an inch to the left. A chair that was facing one direction earlier is now facing another. You don't remember moving it. You don't mind. A calendar still pinned to the side of the magazine rack shows April 2005. No one's changed it. A photo of a green field dotted with sheep takes up most of the page, though the printing is grainy and the colors slightly off, giving the sheep a faint blue tint. You look at it longer than you mean to. The sky behind them is the color of skimmed milk. Back at the front desk, the monitor's glow has dimmed. The mouse sits at an angle you didn't leave it in. The cursor blinks steadily at a search bar you didn't open. You place your hand over it but don't move it. The machine waits. So do you. Somewhere near the back of the building, a soft knocking sound repeats, not insistent, just steady. You tilt your head, but it stops before you can place it. You don't investigate. It's probably the heating duct. Or the fiction section. Or neither. You make your way toward the archives. The door creaks, as always, but the echo lingers longer than usual. The room beyond is cooler, the air less stirred. Rows of cabinets stretch out in front of you, each labeled in neat black marker, newspapers 1980 to 1991, genealogy files, old microfilm, fragile. The drawers are closed. Most haven't been opened in months. A few are locked, though no one remembers where the keys went. You find yourself standing in front of the typewriter that no longer works. It sits on a rolling cart, unplugged, its ribbon dry and coiled like an old joke that lost its punchline. One of the keys is stuck halfway down, the letter G. You press it gently. It doesn't move. On the wall above the cart hangs a framed print of the library's original blueprint. The lines are faded, the corners yellowing. It shows a slightly different layout than the one you walk through every day, a hallway that no longer exists, a doorway that never got built. You wonder if the building remembers that version of itself. You wonder if it ever misses it. As you step back out into the main room, something catches your eye. A book you don't recall seeing before, resting on the new arrival's shelf, though no new books have been added in weeks. The cover is plain. No title. Just a photograph of a window looking out into fog. You open it to a random page. The text reads, "Sometimes the quiet isn't empty. It's just early." You close the book and leave it exactly where it was. The carpet feels softer now. The light has shifted again. You can't tell if it's the hour or just the mood of the building. Somewhere above, something creaks faintly, like someone stepping lightly in a room that doesn't exist. You return to the front desk, but you don't sit. You rest your hands on the edge and look out across the room, the rows, the chairs, the mismatched end caps. Everything is in its place. But something about the stillness now feels deeper. Not heavier. Just more complete. The library doesn't feel empty. It feels paused. And for the first time today, you feel like the pause includes you. You step away from the desk without thinking. Your legs move, but not toward anything specific. The library seems to guide you gently, the way water decides where it wants to go. You pass the oversized books, atlases too large for regular shelves, their spines cracked and glossy with age, and turn into the reference alcove. You haven't been here in a while. The fluorescent light above gives off a low, steady hum, like a distant insect you've decided not to bother with. The temperature in this part of the building is always a little different. Today it's cooler, faintly metallic, like the air just after unplugging an old appliance. The table in the center has a few leftover bookmarks tucked underneath its glass surface. One of them reads, "Knowledge is free. Bring it back by Tuesday." The computer station nearby is powered off. You don't remember shutting it down. Normally, you'd click it awake just to check, but something about this moment invites no follow-up. You simply stand beside it, letting the stillness gather. Outside the tall windows, the sky has turned that quiet, pre-evening color, not yet dusk, but already drained of its earlier brightness. You can't see the street, just the tops of the hedges. A single moth rests against the glass, its wings pressed flat like forgotten paper. You stare at it for a while. It doesn't move. You drift toward the children's section, empty as usual this time of day. The little chairs remain arranged in a perfect semicircle, each one slightly different in height. No one ever figured out why they came that way from the supplier. The puzzle table in the corner holds a half-finished picture of an orchard. Only the sky is complete. The rest is scattered inside a shallow tray, apples, branches, indistinct greens. One of the plush animals leans sideways on the shelf, its head dipped forward as if listening. You straighten it out of habit. Its stitched eyes remain politely blank. A few books here are decades old, bright, smiling covers featuring outdated cartoons and titles that include the word whiz. You run your fingers along them, lightly. The laminate gives a faint squeak under your touch. Near the wall, the puppet stage still stands, draped in slightly faded blue curtains. It hasn't been used since the last storyteller visit, at least a year ago now. A faint smell of plywood and old glue lingers around it, mingling with the faint scent of crayon wax and paper. It's not unpleasant. The light in this section is different, too, filtered through colored decals stuck long ago to the upper panes. A red circle casts a soft halo on the floor. A yellow star glows against the side of a bookshelf. You never quite remember who put them there, but you're used to them. The shapes shift with the sun's movement, turning ever so slowly throughout the day, like they're marking time in their own quiet way. You don't sit, but you rest a hand on one of the little tables. The surface is slightly sticky in one corner. Possibly juice. Possibly glue. Possibly something older and unnamed. The ambiguity feels right. From across the room, you hear a faint rustle, not from the door, but from somewhere deeper inside the stacks. It's not alarming. Just a reminder that silence isn't the same as stillness. You walk back toward the source, past large print biographies and forgotten donation cards. The lighting feels softer here now, as if the ceiling bulbs have dimmed on their own. There's no switch nearby. The smell of the books is stronger, slightly sweet, faintly mineral, and unmistakably warm. Pages aging at their own pace. A few of them sit slightly ajar, their spines giving into gravity or memory. You let them be. You reach the end of the row and stop, not because anything is there, but because nothing needs to be. The floor creaks quietly beneath you, like it's remembering someone else's footsteps. You shift your weight. It creaks again. Somewhere behind you, the clock ticks faintly. You hadn't noticed it earlier. It's not loud, just steady. As if the building is counting something that doesn't need to be measured. You turn and begin walking again, slower this time. The carpet here is a little darker, not by design, just by age. Near the copy machine, a single forgotten pencil lies beside a stack of scrap paper. You pick it up and set it on the edge. The eraser is worn flat. Its purpose is past, but it still looks useful, somehow. The change isn't dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. But it's there, in the light, the stillness, the space between your movements. The building has shifted its tone, like an orchestra quieting between movements. Not ending, just moving on to something quieter still. You return to the front desk, though return is too strong a word for something so unhurried. It's more like wandering gently back to a center of gravity. The lamp still casts that soft yellow circle over the counter, and your chair waits, just a little askew, the cushion shaped faintly by habit. You lower yourself into it with practiced ease, the fabric sighing under your weight. The seat doesn't creak so much as it murmurs, as if acknowledging you. The warmth from earlier still lingers in the foam. The air here feels more still than before, dense in the most comforting way, like everything has finally exhaled. Outside, the sky is losing definition. The windows reflect the room now, turning glass into a muted mirror. You can just make out the outline of your own head in the pane, framed by rows of books behind you. The rest is blurred, light, shadow, soft repetition. You've always liked that effect. It feels like the library is slowly folding in on itself, becoming smaller, rounder, more complete. Your elbows rest on the desk. No rush. You slide your palms flat against the surface, feeling the slight rise of old scuffs and faint indentations from decades of writing, signing, stamping. The desk is heavy, lacquered oak, built in a time when permanence was expected. It has no ambition to move. A piece of folded paper sits at the edge, not from today, but still here. You'd left it there days ago, intending to sort it into the drawer labeled miscellaneous. It's a child's note, you remember. You unfold it again anyway. Lopsided handwriting in green marker. Thank you for having so many books. I like the quiet. It makes my ears stop yelling. Below it, an attempt at a cat, or maybe a bat, drawn with more confidence than accuracy. You let the paper rest again and lean back. The chair lets you, no resistance. Your shoulders drop slightly. A soft weight settles at the back of your neck, not discomfort, just stillness. Something between posture and rest. A faint click in the distance, the light in the hallway triggers itself again. The motion sensor is oversensitive, always has been. You could fix it, but then what would it do all day? It blinks on and hums for a moment. Bright, pale light splashes uselessly onto tile. Then it gives up and clicks off again. The silence returns, not broken, just stretched. You slide your shoes halfway off with a casual nudge. They stay there, tilted, politely waiting. Your socks barely brush the floor. The carpet has a gentle give, not luxurious, but worn soft in just the right way. Even the texture feels patient. Behind you, the book return slot clicks. A gentle clack, as if a paperback dropped in from nowhere. You don't turn. There's no urgency. You'll collect it later. For now, it's enough to know the slot still gets visitors, even if human footsteps have become rare. You glance at the stack of returns beside the monitor. A mix of topics, birdwatching, regional history, a novel someone left a sticky note in that just says, Chapter 12 is too much. You'd meant to read it, but haven't gotten around to it yet. That's the comfort of a library, everything waits for you. The air smells faintly of binding glue and old paper, warm, dry, familiar. You breathe it in slowly, not to savor it, just because that's what breathing feels like here. The scent is like dust that knows it's welcome. Your fingers rest against the ceramic mug you keep near the monitor. It hasn't held tea for days, but you like the feel of it. The handle is smooth from use, the glaze chips slightly near the rim. You turn it in your hand once, then let it go. Its warmth is only imagined now, but somehow that's enough. One of the ceiling tiles has begun to sag again, ever so slightly, the corner bowed like it's listening in. You've reported it twice. Nothing's been done, and now you're not sure you want it fixed. It gives the ceiling a kind of character, like an eyebrow raised in quiet skepticism. You hear a distant thump. Likely the heating system shifting gears. The sound travels through the ductwork like a long, thoughtful cough. It settles somewhere in the rafters. Nothing to worry about. The silence returns thickly, comfortably. You lean your head back and close your eyes for a moment, not to sleep, but to feel the weight of the stillness more fully. The kind of quiet that wraps, not isolates. Your breathing slows. Each inhale is like drawing in fabric. Each exhale folds it neatly away. You think of the older men who used to come every Tuesday at 3 o'clock to read the newspaper cover to cover. He hasn't been in for months. You wonder, without urgency, where his Tuesdays have gone. The chair he used to prefer still faces the window. It's been dusted, but not moved. The light above the microfiche reader blinks once, then steadies. You'd left it on earlier. Or perhaps it turned itself on. Either is possible. Machines here are like that, quietly self-directed when no one's watching too closely. You open a drawer, then close it again. Not because you need anything. Just the soft wooden slide and click of it feels appropriate. Like punctuation. Your hand finds a small cloth-bound journal tucked behind the monitor. The logbook, technically. You open to a blank page and write today's date. Then nothing else. You just hold the pen for a moment, then return it to its slot. Some entries don't need words. The wall clock ticks forward. One soft notch. The hour is quiet, almost identical to the one before. And the one that follows will likely be the same. You feel no need to mark the difference. The building shifts again. A groan through its spine. The sounds here are small, but honest. You sit, still, steady. The world around you hums gently, a space full of near-silent things remembering how to speak. And you let yourself stay there, just a little longer. The lamp continues to glow beside you, its light softening the edges of everything it touches. The warmth it casts feels more like a memory than a bulb, something stored up over countless evenings like this one, where the world narrows gently to just the pages, the walls, and you. Your fingers rest still beside the closed return log, not moving toward any task. You don't reach for the bookmarks, or the mug with its faint ring of cooled tea, or even the pen that's slowly rolled closer to the edge with the slightest shifts of the desk. Everything is still. Beyond the tall windows, night has fully arrived. The street lamps hum in a way that pairs neatly with the old heating unit in the corner. You've stopped noticing the sound long ago, but tonight, it stands out again, a low, even murmur that seems to smooth the edges of the room. No dramatic fade to black. Just a gentle dimming, like someone slowly drawing a sheer curtain across the hours. The air feels different now, denser in its stillness. You don't move much, but your body registers the way it's settled, shoulders heavy in a way that isn't unpleasant, spine relaxed but aware, fingertips cooling slightly in the motionless air. You exhale once, quietly. There's no one around to disturb. You're not even sure anyone would mind if you fell asleep right here at the desk. A few reference books might keep watch. The globe near the atlas stand hasn't moved all year, and it certainly wouldn't judge. In the children's section, far down the main aisle, a paper mobile shaped like a crescent moon turns ever so slightly. Probably from the heating vent nearby. Or possibly from habit. You made it during a slow shift in March, blue cardstock with tiny silver dots, strung with fishing line to a bent metal hook. It was meant to come down at the end of the month, but no one seemed to mind it staying. Now, it turns slowly in the still library air, as if on a schedule all its own. You allow your gaze to soften across the room. Each shelf seems more like a companion than a fixture. There's comfort in the straight lines, the patient symmetry of categories, the knowledge that even if no one borrows a book for weeks, they'll still be there. Waiting isn't really a problem for them. Some of them are quite good at it. You think of the books that used to fly off the shelves, the paperback thrillers that needed replacement copies every few months, the illustrated encyclopedias that once had waiting lists. Now, people type questions into phones while waiting at bus stops. Some of them even print the answers and bring them in to double-check against your collection, as if the building's blessing still counts for something. It does, you think. Quietly. Even if the blessing is mostly ceremonial. Behind you, the community bulletin board remains as full as ever. People still tack things up, language class flyers, piano recitals, church bazaars. One paper just says, "Lost sock, blue," and includes a phone number. You didn't remove it. There was something oddly hopeful about the way it was written, like whoever posted it wasn't entirely kidding. You stretch your legs out a little under the desk, the soles of your shoes pressing lightly against the wooden footrest. It creaks, just enough to remind you it's there. Everything in here has that kind of presence, nothing loud, nothing insistent, but nothing entirely forgettable either. Even the copier has its own quiet charisma, though it hasn't seen much action since the nearby print shop dropped its rates. A few street sounds drift in now, muffled by the double-paned windows. A car passing with music low enough to sound like wind. A distant clack of someone walking in heeled shoes. And somewhere down the block, a dog letting out a half-hearted bark, not an alarm, just a comment. The neighborhood feels like it's settling too. You wonder how many homes have lights like this one, soft, steady, amber-colored, and quiet. Probably more than you'd expect. You shift slightly in your chair and glance toward the tall, narrow window near the nonfiction section. The sky outside is a deeper blue than before, the kind that's almost black, but not quite. The kind that reminds you of wide ink stains on linen. One star is visible above the roofline, faint but there. You don't always notice them from inside, but this one seems to be making an effort. You look back toward the front counter. Everything is in its place. The stack of book returns sits in a neat little pile, their covers slightly askew like they've just finished a conversation. The rubber stamp lies beside the date pad, its handle faintly worn from use. Even the sign that says, "Reference help available," still tilts slightly to the left, a tilt you've stopped correcting. A part of you wonders how many people think about this place when they're not in it. Maybe not many. But the thought doesn't weigh heavily. This place holds its shape regardless of audience. It doesn't perform. It just persists. The shelves don't worry about relevance. The carpet doesn't care if it's photographed. There's freedom in that. You sit a little longer, letting your thoughts move as slowly as the hour. There's nowhere else to be. Not just yet. You'll lock up soon, check the doors twice, maybe take one last stroll down the main aisle before turning off the final light. But for now, you stay seated. Still. Breathing slower than usual. The kind of quiet that feels earned. Somewhere behind you, a clock ticks. It's been ticking the whole time, of course, but only now do you notice. It doesn't seem in a hurry. Neither are you. The room doesn't feel empty. It feels complete. Like everything has found the place it needs to rest, including you. And so you do. You stay where you are for a while, the world around you softening by degrees. The desk beneath your arms feels warmer now, not because of the lamp or the air, but simply from the time you've been leaning there. Even your hands seem slower, not tired, just unworried. You trace a quiet circle on the wooden surface with your thumb, not thinking about it, not needing it to mean anything. The shelves sit still across the room, content in their silence. Titles blur into each other from this distance, a long landscape of spines, each with its own quiet voice, none demanding to be heard right now. There's something restful in that. Even the books seem to know what kind of night this is. Outside, the sky has deepened into full darkness. The faint light from the street lamps casts a slow, golden ripple across the sidewalk. Trees hold their posture, unmoving except for the occasional leaf that shifts slightly in a breeze you can't hear. The street is empty, or close enough to feel that way. No movement. No color. Just the soft breathing of a town that has quietly gone to sleep. Your own breath is slower now, fuller, as if your lungs remembered something they used to know. The kind of breathing that comes not from effort but from stillness. Each inhale feels just enough. Each exhale releases some small trace of tension you hadn't realized was there. You don't need to adjust your posture. It has already adjusted itself. The air around you seems to thicken, not unpleasantly, more like a blanket pulled gently over the room. You can feel the light cooling of your skin where your collar sits slightly open, the weight of the sweater you didn't take off earlier, the gentle pressure of the chair's backrest against your spine. Even the light has softened. The lamp no longer seems to push against the dark, but simply sits with it, the way two old friends might share a bench in silence. Somewhere across the library, the furnace clicks softly before humming into life. The sound is low, familiar. Not mechanical, but almost conversational, as if the building itself is settling in, making one final adjustment before resting. It has kept a rhythm with you all evening. Now it seems ready to sleep too. Your eyes drift half closed, not quite shut. You're not resisting sleep. You're not pursuing it either. It's simply near. Closer than before. You can feel the stillness in your bones now, not heavy, but grounding. Even your thoughts begin to smooth at the edges. There's no rush. No need to hold on tightly to the thread of anything. If a word wanders in, it's allowed to wander back out without consequence. The overhead lights are off, save for the one near you. The rest of the room fades gently into shadow, but not darkness. You can still make out the shapes of furniture, the slight gleam on the polished rail at the top of the stairs, the outline of a reading chair no one used today. The whole space feels folded inward, like it's drawing a quiet breath alongside you. From outside, a soft sound reaches you, maybe a car turning a corner 2 streets away, or a gate closing in the wind. It comes and goes without urgency, a detail not meant for you, yet not unwelcome. The night accepts it and resumes its quiet. Your fingers remain still on the surface of the desk. You feel the faint pulse in your wrist, steady and slow. The rhythm of being here. Present, but drifting. Awake, but softened. There's nothing left to do. Nothing pulling at your attention. Even the library itself seems to have stopped offering suggestions. It's just here, resting with you. The computer monitor fades entirely to black. A few LEDs blink softly under the desk, quiet signs that things are still alive, just dormant. The clock above the doorway ticks in the same rhythm it always has, but tonight the sound feels rounder. Softer. Less like a count and more like a lull. You think, briefly, about closing up. Turning off the lamp, locking the doors. But there's no urgency to it. The library will wait. It always does. The idea of standing up feels too crisp for now. So you stay seated. Breathing. Present. The cushion beneath you, the desk in front of you, the books beyond you, all part of the same still scene. Everything is here, including you. A draft moves gently through the vent near the floor, and you can feel the shift in temperature along your ankles. It's not cold, just a reminder that the room breathes too. You let your hands rest in your lap. Your shoulders lower without effort. Time becomes less distinct. Minutes may pass, or not. It doesn't matter. There is no measurement here, only softness. The smell of old pages still lingers faintly in the air, along with something else, maybe a trace of the lemony cleaner used earlier in the day. It's a humble scent. Not designed to linger, but it has, in a quiet, unobtrusive way. Like everything else here. One of the fluorescent bulbs in the far corner lets out a tiny, almost inaudible click as it cools. A small sound in a room of small sounds. You notice it without thinking. Then it becomes part of the rest, another layer of quiet. There is no final thought. No summary. No resolution. Just the continuing hum of this place and the way your body has joined it. At some point, the lamp may turn off. You might rise and go. But not yet. For now, everything is still, and you are part of that stillness. And in the softest hour of the night, the library waits with you, unworried, unwatched, and gently quiet.